Somewhere, someone finally loves you the way you always wanted. They're consistent, they're kind, they actually show up. And instead of relaxing into it, something else happens entirely. Some part of you starts looking for the exit. You pick a fight over nothing. You pull away right when things get close. You find a flaw and hold on to it. Hold on to it like a life raft. Something to justify the distance you're already quietly creating, before you've even fully admitted to yourself that you're creating it at all. Not because you don't want the love. You want it more than almost anything. But some part of you has never once believed it could actually, truly last. So you'd rather end it yourself, on your own terms, than wait around helplessly for them to eventually do it instead. At least this way, you saw it coming. If that pattern sounds painfully familiar, this video is going to explain exactly why the closer real love gets, the more urgently some part of you wants to run. Picture this. Things have been going well for weeks. They're thoughtful. They remember small details. They text back. Nothing is wrong. And somehow, that itself starts to feel wrong. You wait for the crack to appear. You watch closely for the moment they'll finally reveal who they really are, or lose interest, or become someone completely different than before. When that moment doesn't come, you feel something you didn't expect at all. Not relief, restlessness, an itch under your skin that something needs to happen immediately, right now. So maybe you start a small argument out of nowhere, or go quiet for no clear reason, or suddenly notice and fixate intensely on one tiny flaw you'd never even mentioned. In the moment, it feels completely justified, reasonable, even necessary. But afterward, some small, honest part of you wonders quietly, did I just create the very problem I feared? You watch the relationship wobble slightly under the weight of what you just did, and strangely, some part of you feels almost relieved. Familiar ground again, something you recognize and understand. Chaos, uncertainty, or distance feels oddly more comfortable than steady, consistent closeness ever does, which makes absolutely no sense until you understand exactly where that comfort originally came from. This isn't about being incapable of love or simply broken somehow. It's about a nervous system that learned very early a specific and very different definition of safety. Psychologists call this fear of intimacy, or sometimes self-sabotage in relationships, a pattern where closeness itself, not distance, becomes the thing that triggers genuine anxiety and real threat. This usually develops when early relationships, especially with caregivers, taught a child that closeness was unpredictable, inconsistent, or occasionally even dangerous in some emotional or practical sense. Maybe love came with sudden, unpredictable withdrawal. Maybe closeness was followed by disappointment, criticism, or abandonment, often enough that the nervous system quietly learned closeness precedes real pain. So the brain adapts in a strange but logical way. It starts treating safety, stability, and steady closeness as the actual warning sign, while distance and uncertainty feel oddly, deceptively safer. This creates what attachment researchers sometimes call an approach avoidance conflict. You deeply crave closeness, but the moment you get genuinely close, your nervous system quietly sounds a real alarm. That alarm doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like instinct. Like your body simply knows something is wrong, even when your conscious mind can clearly see nothing actually is. So you self-sabotage, not out of any real malice, but because creating distance feels like restoring genuine safety, even though what it's actually doing is destroying the very thing you want. And here's the cruelest part of this entire pattern. The more genuinely good the relationship is, the louder and more urgent that internal alarm often becomes over time. Here's what's actually happening underneath. For someone with this wound, love was likely never simply safe. It was safe, then unsafe, then safe again. This creates something researchers call disorganized attachment, where the very same person or relationship that offers comfort is also, confusingly, the exact same source of real fear. As a child, you couldn't fully approach the love because it wasn't always fully safe. But you also couldn't fully avoid it either, because you desperately needed it to survive. So you developed a very particular kind of relational whiplash, pulling closer when distance feels unbearable, then pulling away sharply the moment closeness starts to feel genuinely, overwhelmingly real. This pattern doesn't disappear simply because you grew up. It follows you directly into adult relationships, quietly running in the background, largely undetected, until real intimacy finally starts to form. The nervous system doesn't actually know the difference between old danger and new safety. It only recognizes the specific pattern. This much closeness, historically, has meant eventual pain is coming. So it does what it was originally built to do. It protects you urgently from a threat that technically isn't really there anymore, but still feels completely viscerally real inside your body. And here's the open loop worth holding on to, because we are absolutely coming back to it. This exact instinct, however painful and disruptive, was once a genuinely brilliant survival strategy. As adults, people with this pattern often unconsciously choose partners who are somewhat unavailable, inconsistent, or emotionally distant, because that dynamic feels oddly, uncomfortably familiar, and therefore safer to navigate. When someone finally shows up consistently, warmly, and reliably instead, it can paradoxically feel more threatening than comforting. The nervous system has never learned to trust. You see it in the person who suddenly loses interest the exact moment someone finally clearly reciprocates their feelings after chasing someone unavailable with real intensity for months beforehand. You see it in the one who picks apart a genuinely kind partner's small flaws obsessively, searching almost desperately for a reason substantial enough to justify finally safely leaving the relationship. You see it in the person who feels suffocated, trapped, or oddly bored the moment a relationship becomes stable, predictable, and calm, even though calm was exactly what they always claimed to want. You see it in the friend who cancels plans, goes quiet, or creates unnecessary distance right after an unusually vulnerable, close, or emotionally intimate conversation with someone they genuinely care about. You see it in the partner who starts a real fight almost immediately after a genuinely wonderful, emotionally open, closely bonded evening, as though closeness itself requires some form of correction. You see it in the person who feels far more relaxed, oddly at ease, texting someone unreliable than someone dependable, simply because unreliability requires no real risk of trusting anything at all. You see it in the one who says, quite genuinely, I want a stable relationship, while consistently, unconsciously choosing people who could never actually provide real stability in the first place. And you see it in the specific, quiet grief of looking back afterward and realizing you were the one who ended something good. This creates a devastating cycle. You sabotage the relationship ends, and the ending itself becomes new evidence supporting the original belief. Closeness never really lasts anyway, does it? The nervous system doesn't recognize this as self-created. It simply recognizes confirmation, and so the entire cycle resets itself, ready to repeat again with the very next real chance. I promised we would return to something important. This instinct, however disruptive it feels now, was once a genuinely brilliant survival strategy. Let's talk about exactly why that's true. A child who learns that closeness is unpredictable develops real skill at detecting subtle shifts in warmth, tone, and attention. Skills most people never actually need to develop. That hypervigilance wasn't dysfunction, it was adaptation, a remarkably intelligent nervous system doing exactly its job, keeping you emotionally prepared for pain in an environment where pain arrived unpredictably. This means the goal was never to stop feeling afraid of real intimacy entirely. The goal is teaching your nervous system, patiently and repeatedly, that this specific closeness is actually different from before, safer than before. Not because you're forcing yourself to trust blindly, but because you're gradually, consistently gathering genuine new evidence that contradicts that old, outdated pattern. So what does healing this actually look like? It begins with simply noticing the urge to sabotage without immediately acting on it. Just noticing. Nothing more required in that moment. It means asking yourself, gently and without judgment, is this actual danger right now? Or is this simply an old, familiar alarm going off at entirely the wrong, outdated time? It means staying present through the discomfort of real closeness instead of immediately fleeing it, even when every instinct urges you to create distance, chaos, or convenient conflict instead. It means choosing again and again relationships with people who remain steady even when you test them, because consistency, repeated enough times, is precisely what slowly rewires old fear. This instinct kept you safe, once, in a genuinely difficult environment. It was intelligent, adaptive, and completely necessary back then, but you're finally allowed to gently retire it now. Because you were never actually incapable of real love. You were simply someone whose nervous system needed real proof that this time, staying close could finally be safe.